On behalf of the Teacher to Teacher project through Mission Equip, we are so glad that you are here with us today for this training session, which we are calling a collaborative conversation. We're actually going to talk about the word collaborative today as part of this training. So we are so happy to have you with us. And if I haven't had a chance to meet you in person, my name is Anna Laughlin. I am the Executive Director of Mission Equip, and I am one of the Teacher to Teacher trainers. I have had a chance to be down in Belize many, many times and have just benefited so much from our partnerships with the schools down there. I am so happy today to have one of my favorite people in the whole world with us. This is Nikki Gibbs. Welcome, Nikki. Nikki and I have a long history together. We started off as colleagues and quickly became friends, actually 19 years ago. And Nikki, you're not going to believe this, but I brought along evidence. I would like to show this picture from 19 years ago. Nikki had a different hairstyle, and I clearly haven't changed my hairstyle in many years. The reason I asked Nikki to be with us today is because she has such extensive experience in education. When I say Nikki has done it all and seen it all, it is very true. She has taught, I don't even know how many different grade levels, but everything from early primary, upper primary, secondary, and now she's teaching adults. And also has had a career in the middle of her education career as a counselor and has held leadership positions. So she just has vast knowledge and experience, and also some really great degrees where she has been able to be educated in so many aspects of education and mental health. So Nikki, thanks so much for being here. Is there anything else you want them to know about you before we get started?
Thank you for inviting me to do this. I'm actually pretty honored, and it's actually exciting to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart.
Good. Collaboration, right?
Absolutely.
So let's get started. The first thing I want to do when you're talking about a term that is thrown around a lot, it's really important to have a good, clear definition. So I looked the word collaboration up, and I'd like to read you all the definition. The dictionary defines collaboration as the action of working with someone to create something. The action of working with someone to create something. And I'd like to ask you, Nikki, just to start, how do you think the word collaboration translates into the classroom? How would you define collaboration in terms of the classroom?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind when I think about collaborating is teaming. I think it's something that happens not only in the classroom, but it can happen with colleagues outside of the classroom, and it makes for a very dynamic classroom setting. Mm-hmm. I think that if collaboration happens effectively, students benefit, but also educators benefit from just bouncing knowledge off of one another.
Mm-hmm. And when I think of collaboration in the classroom, the first thing that comes to my mind is children collaborating and sitting around tables, huddling together, working on problems. And I know that in a typical educational scenario, we try to teach collaborative learning. You've heard that term before. We use that term a lot. Unfortunately, in the world we live in with COVID right now, collaboration among students is nearly impossible as they have to keep distance. But for the purposes of today, I'd like to just talk about collaboration as it relates to teachers, as you have already mentioned. Mm-hmm. First thing I want to talk about is that research shows, so this is not my idea, this is research-based. Research shows that when teachers work together in a school, there is more commitment and accountability school-wide. Say it again. When teachers work together in a school, there's more commitment and accountability. So thinking about your career teaching all over the place, mainly in Washington, D.C., with so many different grade levels and ages. How has working with your fellow teachers in a school setting helped you to feel more committed and accountable to your school?
I think working with a diverse group of educators has been very beneficial to my career because I have an opportunity to not only learn from their expertise, I have an opportunity to share my expertise as well. I
Mhm.
think that a lot of educators come from differing backgrounds and experiences, and each person has their own viewpoint. And when you have an opportunity to share your viewpoint, others can kind of chime in and build upon that view and help you see a totally different perspective. I
Mhm.
even think about projects that I may have in mind. And if I'm able to bounce an idea off of a colleague, that person can actually shed light on something that I never thought about. And that's the beauty and the benefit of collaborating. It's allowing people to add a little bit of breadth and depth to some of the concepts that you may have been sitting on for a long time. And then they also provide you with a little bit of incentive to get your work done.
Right. And I know, I wanted just to tell a quick little story that I don't think I've ever told you this, but you impacted me greatly. Um, we met, like I said earlier, we met 19 years ago. I had just moved to Washington, D.C. It was my second teaching job. I was a pretty new teacher. I'm sure you remember, we were working in a very, very brand new school in a very high crime, high poverty neighborhood. And the second day of school happened to be 9/11. And I will never forget getting the news that the terrorist attacks had happened in New York City and that there was a plane headed towards Washington, D.C., right where we were. And I remember going out into the hallway, and I looked down the hall, and my kids in my class were going crazy, looking out the window, trying to see the Pentagon burning and worried that a plane was coming. And I looked out in the hallway, and you came out of your classroom and you looked down the hallway at me and you said, "We need to go back and start teaching." And I was just wide-eyed. I was frozen. And I thought to myself, okay, yes, I'm here to be a teacher. I got to go teach these kids. And because you were calm and you were reassuring to me and you guided me, I was able to go back in there and calm my students down. And that is a perfect example of what you're talking about. There is that accountability and that partnership that happens when you support each other.
Absolutely. I think that it's important because when one person may be struggling, another person may find strength. And I think that's the beauty of collaboration. I think not only is it something that is beneficial academically, honestly, it's beneficial socially and emotionally as well. And in that situation, no, we had no idea what was going to happen. But we also, from my perspective, I also knew that we were the only stable force for a group of students that we didn't even actually know. It was the second day of school. So we had to make sure that we were level-headed for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for making me remember that I needed to be level-headed because I had forgotten all these years later. Um, You know, in addition to the accountability and commitment piece, research also shows that when teachers work together or collaborate, their teaching practices become stronger. They become better teachers. Can you talk to that at all, just from personal experience?
There is nothing that I find more rewarding than interdisciplinary planning and interprofessional planning.
Hmm.
It's important not to work in a silo. Of course, we're smart people, right? But there is nothing more rewarding than to be able to listen to somebody talk about their experiences, talk about your experiences, and compare and contrast, and also have some takeaways to bring into your classroom and then to implement for best practices. Over the course of my career, I have teamed and collaborated with quite a few people. I've collaborated with elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, other professors. Now, currently in my role as a project manager and an ESL teacher, I collaborate with administrators, etc. And it's important to have voice in. There's no one person who is indeed the expert. Right. So it's important to be able to hear what somebody's perspective is. Mm-hmm. You can even challenge that perspective, but the goal is to be able to continue to learn, because we're continuously learning as educators. We have to be able to change with the times and also make sure that we are doing what's in the best interest of our students. And if in fact we are collaborating with other educators, we have to give our colleagues the benefit of the doubt and know that they are also interested in aligning with the mission and vision of our institutions, and we work together to fulfill that mission.
Okay, you mentioned something interesting. You kind of threw it in there and didn't totally speak to it, but you mentioned working closely alongside your administrators, your school leaders. So I've been in plenty of schools all over the world where teachers are over here, leaders are over here, and the only time they interact is when the principal comes in to say, you're not doing this right, or you need to do this better. What is the solution there? Or what is the benefit of them uniting rather than being two separate forces?
I think it is essential to leverage developmental assets. As I mentioned before, every educator has an expertise in something. If in fact you are interested in building a strong team of collaboration, mm-hmm. you leverage assets in your team members. Your team members also include educators, your classroom teachers, because together as administrators and teachers, you are a team. It's not two separate teams, it's a team because the mission is to educate learners. Mm-hmm. If you look at it from that perspective, you see the expertise across the team. And if that person is better at, say, classroom management, why not allow that teacher to train other teachers on classroom management? Right. Yeah. If that teacher is great at lesson planning, leverage that teacher's asset and say, I want you to be the trainer, as opposed to it being such a top-heavy organization.
I love that. And I think, like you said, when everyone is on the same page about the direction the school is going, everyone's working towards the same goal.
Absolutely.
Of increasing student achievement and having healthy, mentally, physically, socially, academically healthy students. And it has to be a team sport, right? Yeah. So the third thing I want to talk about is really important for especially teachers that work in very rural or very remote schools, not close to other schools. Research also tells us that working with fellow teachers, collaborating with fellow teachers reduces those feelings of loneliness and isolation, and working alongside other educators helps you feel support. What would you say about that?
Oh my goodness. I can actually speak to this just from recent experiences working in the pandemic. I don't think, to be completely frank with you, I didn't value my current coworkers as much as I do right now, because I went into my classroom, I collaborated when I felt it was necessary to collaborate when it came to planning, etc. I worked in professional learning communities when it was something that was required. But as far as collaborating over the pandemic and the quarantine, working alone, it's been pretty lonely. So what we did was we were very strategic in making sure that we supported each other outside of just those regular scheduled meetings. We scheduled regular Zoom meetings where we had opportunities to not only talk about how we were progressing academically and professionally, but we had opportunities to talk about how this particular experience is impacting us and how it's taking a toll on us. So we developed those interpersonal relationships in addition to those professional relationships, and that also strengthens teaming and collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Because really you want to have deep relationships with the people you work with. You want to talk about how things at work are affecting you emotionally.
Absolutely.
It matters because how you feel emotionally affects your students. It just does. Um, most of you watching this, maybe not all of you, have heard of the famous lady in world history. Her name was Helen Keller, and she was blind and she was deaf. But she happened to be the first person in the world at that time to receive a Bachelor of Arts college degree as a deaf and blind person. And because her struggle was so difficult, I mean, education is hard when you can see and hear, let alone when you don't have both of those senses. But she said something so profound. She said, alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. How does this message relate to teacher collaboration, Nikki?
I think we've said it. I think that not only is collaboration important for meeting the needs of students, but it's also important because it helps you to develop a stronger and better craft. You are ever evolving as an educator. You are not the same person that you were the first day that you stepped into a classroom with your first group of students. It is important that you're not the same person.
Right.
You have to evolve over time.
Right.
And if evolution suggests that collaboration is best, you have to figure out how to carve out ways to not only build upon your craft as an educator, but it's important for you to also contribute to other educators building their craft. It's selfish, to be completely frank with you, to work in isolation when you know that you have honed in on a specific craft and you do it well. Currently in my position, we do something called pineappling, and it's simply just peer-to-peer observations.
Oh.
I'm going to be completely frank with you. I was a little apprehensive about the peer-to-peer observation. I was like, wait a minute, I'm ready for someone to come into my classroom because I just started in this position. But I had to think about it. I've been teaching almost 20 years. And so if I've been teaching almost 20 years, obviously I'm doing something right. So I have something to share. I have something to contribute. So I had to get over myself. I said, okay, come on in, ask me questions. I want you to jump in, ask questions along with students, jump in and join groups, etc. And it makes for a better work environment when peers are supporting one another. It absolutely does. It makes for a stronger team, and it makes for just a better work environment when you know that you are supported not only by your peers, but you're also supported by your administrators. Right. There have been times where administrators have joined in my classroom as well. They're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I just want to be a part of the interview process. I'm teaching ESL students and they're asking these higher order questions. And I mean, so I think it reignites something in collaborating. It reignites and it sparks an interest or a desire to be better when you collaborate.
Right. I love that. That's so true. And it also makes you want to, it just gives you more energy. It gives you that because teaching is exhausting. Absolutely,
it absolutely is
exhausting, and we need each other. I want to talk real quickly before we wrap up about ways that you can collaborate. You kind of spoke about it, but some of our teachers that we work with around the world work in very, very rural, remote schools where there are only 2 in a building. And I've been doing a lot of research in the past couple of years about how people around the world collaborate, how teachers collaborate, and how educators collaborate. And it's interesting that Facebook has become one of the main platforms for educational groups to collaborate. For example, in the country of Nepal, medical students and their professors are collaborating through Facebook. They're sharing ideas. They're talking. They're not gossiping about, oh, did you hear that this teacher did this? But they are really sharing best practices.
Wow.
So I think it's such a cool idea if you find yourself in a place where there literally is nobody around to help you or support you, and you are throwing your hands up saying, I do not know what to do. I do not have the answer. Reach out to another school that may be 50 miles away. Reach out by email or log on to Facebook and find people that you know work there and connect.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I like how you mentioned that your staff has been meeting together just virtually. It's so important to stay connected however you can.
It is. It absolutely is. Especially during these times. I mean, collaboration is important even outside of our current times, but I think working in isolation, so to speak, is difficult in and of itself. You feel like the world is on your shoulders when it doesn't have to be. You can bounce ideas off of a teacher who may have experienced something that you're currently experiencing. Like, hey, have you had any challenges with I don't know, with planning across grade level? That person could say, oh yeah, I did this. This is the lesson that I did. These were the challenges that I experienced. This is how I combated the problem. Right. I mean, so it's really no need to feel like you have to reinvent the wheel when people have already done it. If right. They've been there and done it, just take it, you know, and tweak it and make it work for you.
So is it okay to ask for help? That's the final question for you.
Is it okay? I would say that it's beyond okay to ask for help. If you are a first-year teacher, 15th year teacher, 20-year teacher, whatever, it's important and it's okay to not know something. Mm-hmm. I'm not as tech savvy as some of these millennials who are teaching. I had to humble myself and say, you know what, let me ask Caitlin how to
turn my computer on.
I know how to turn my computer on. How to do breakout sessions on Zoom. I don't know how to do this. And again, not only is it a humbling thing, you get over yourself and you're like, okay, again, this is making my craft better. Yep. And then Caitlin in turn will say, well, I'm struggling with creating higher order questions. Can you help me?
What you just said, that's building trust among
exactly people. So it requires a level of trust, right? But it requires you to be open to being vulnerable and saying, you know what, here's an area where I need to improve. How about I ask a coworker or a colleague if they've experienced this before, and let me just be receptive to hearing their experiences.
And I would love to add that I have been a school administrator before, and school administrators do not always have the answer. So just reaching out to your principal or your vice principal and saying, hey, I need you to show me how to do this. They may not know how to be able to do that. They may not know how to help you, and that's okay. There's someone that can help you.
I had an administrator when I taught in Texas who was 25 years old. I'm sorry, 26. She taught for 3 years.
And you're not 26?
No, I'm not. I dyed my hair. And I felt foolish. I'm just being honest. I felt foolish asking her for assistance. But I had to get over myself and say, okay, well, I'm not only in a new environment in the state of Texas.
Right.
This is culturally different than anything I've ever experienced. The standards are different. The expectations are different. I had to truly humble myself and say, you know what? I need help. In turn, she needed help because she had never been an administrator before. So she's like, okay, Nikki, behind the scenes, do you mind helping me with this? So again, we supported each other. I supported her to be a better administrator. She supported me to be a better classroom instructor in a different environment, in an environment that I had never been in before.
Right. And that just supports everything we've already talked about. It supports accountability, commitment, feeling validated, not feeling isolated and alone, all of those things that we've already talked about.
And then in turn, our students, our learners thrive. When we are at our best, our students are at their best. And when they're not at their best, we can also meet them where they are. We can say, you know what? I understand that you're not doing well right now. We can figure out how to make this work in our classroom. Maybe you can also utilize a coworker who's better suited to handle that student's problems. I mean, it's so many different things that are so many benefits to working with other people in the school setting.
Right. So I love ending on that note. Relying on each other it's key. It's crucial.
It absolutely is.
The success of any school anywhere around the world. Humans are humans and we need each other. We were put on the earth to be in collaboration, right?
Absolutely.
Nikki, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, teachers, for being part of this collaborative conversation. And to wrap it up, as far as your teacher credit, you will need to visit the Google Classroom through the Teacher to Teacher project and complete the reflection piece. And basically, you'll just have to answer a few questions related to what we've talked about today and kind of think about your role in your school and how well you either do collaborate or do not collaborate with your colleagues. And hopefully you feel a little more inspired to maybe reach out for help and maybe support some of the colleagues that you know are struggling in your school. I was one of those, and I thank Nikki for being there for me and just believing in me and being patient with me and also trusting me. And now we're friends for 19 years. So
19 years.
Yep.
And this wasn't one-sided. You helped me a lot too.
We won't get into that. I kept you laughing. That's maybe it. Maybe I brought
insane.
I brought you a muffin every now and then. But thank you so much, Nikki, and thank you, teachers. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.